That was Mac the Knife. It's a real earworm of a piece. And my name is Tim Dawson. I'm a double bass player. This is a double bass. And I play in the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And Carla and I are going to have a little chat today to talk about a recent project that we've been working on. And while she talks to you, I'm going to put this thing away and be back in a moment.
Thanks, Tim. That was lovely. What a great way to start this off with some music, and really part of church and art and music being a spiritual expression all by itself, and helping people on their spiritual journey. And Tim is a lay leader within Kingston Road United Church. He randomly one day picked up the phone, called me, and said, "Hey, I have an idea. What do you think?" And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the story of his journey, Kingston Road's journey, and actually how it became much more than that. So Tim, what idea did you come to me with? Like, do you remember that? Because it seems like it was a long time ago, but so much has happened.
It was a long time ago. It actually started off as a live event because at our church we have a concert series called Kingston Road Village Concert Series in downtown Toronto, well, east end of Toronto. And we had scheduled a concert called Hysterical, a comedic cantata, for April 19th. And it was a brand new show with members of the Second City and members of the Toronto Symphony. So it was a comedy and music. And the theme for our show was music from the church through the ages. So it's kind of looking at the last 1,000 years of church music, but through a funny lens.
That's and so much has changed since then, of course. But what I really love about how you just introduced that is that you named all these partners. You named all these relationships, and your inspiration of this new idea of what could be actually came from relationships and partnerships. And what I really also love about how you just described that is that you took, your other hat, which is a pretty big hat, being in a symphony, then your role within Kingston Road, and you actually brought them together and looked at it holistically of like what else is possible with that. And so I love that the partners is where the idea came from. Can you describe kind of these partners when you approached them and said, what do you think about this coming together, what it would look like? Like, what did you expect and what happened in those relationships?
Sure, and Carla, you're amazing. I love the way you you bring things together. It's so wonderful the way you describe it. I guess being in the Toronto Symphony, I've been there for 40 years. I'm just one of the luckiest people on the planet to get to make a living doing what I love, touring the world. It's just been an incredible job. So anyway, so 2 years ago, actually, it started 2 years ago, we had just done a show called The Second City Guide to the Symphony. And it was a very, very funny show. It was a hit show with six actor singers from the Second City. Colin Mochrie, the famous Colin Mochrie, was the host, and the full Toronto Symphony did this show, and we just laughed our heads off every night. We did this over 3 years. We did it many times. And it brought into the concert house all kinds of people that had never seen a symphony orchestra before, comedy lovers that came to see us. So it was a fantastically successful collaboration, and one that our music director at the time, Peter Unjan, he, who is the cousin of Eric Idle from Monty Python's Flying Circus, this conductor of a major symphony orchestra got behind this crazy idea of combining comedy and music. So I really owe Peter Unjan a thank you for bringing this concept forward. So the pianist and composer for the show was sitting at the piano right near the double bass section. And so we got to talking. His name is Matthew Reed, and his partner, writing partner for the Second City Guide to the Symphony, Carly Heffernan, was one of the singer actresses. So I approached them with this idea of having a smaller ensemble that we could tour to churches throughout Canada and the US. And they actually loved the idea, because one of the challenges with the big orchestral show is that it had to be in cities with big orchestras and big halls, and it was very expensive to produce. So then we sat down and we had to figure out what the heck what's the subject for our show gonna be? And my father was a church organist out in Edmonton. I've grown up in the church and hearing the incredible music. And when you play in a symphony orchestra, you're playing Mozart and Bach and Handel, and all of these composers were deeply connected to the church, because that's where it was at, and so and we're kind of losing touch with that. Even some of the young players today, like they didn't grow up in the church, so they're approaching this music from a sort of a more secular standpoint. And I just thought, well, this is a super opportunity to kind of educate, entertain, and then there was the fundraising element as well. And that's kind of where you came in, Carla.
Well, I mean, I would say that you're the one who took the big leap of faith on this. So, and what I love is that you had this inspiration that you talked about Second City and the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, but then you took it further, right? You said, well, who are the other partners? And so, especially with COVID, which I thought was really interesting, is that you were thinking about these small venues anyway. And then when COVID hit us, you're like, well, we can't actually have 300 people anymore. Like, it's down to 50. And now obviously things continue to ebb and flow of how many people are allowed. But like a 50-person venue might make sense during this time, or even smaller. And then you did an even bigger pivot. You want to tell us what you did when things in the fall took a turn for the worst, and you found it to be another way to just pivot?
Yeah, well, backing up just a wee bit, EDGEy, United Church, was instrumental because we got a grant to pay for the writing of Mass Hysterical. So we're very, very thankful for that. And they created a fantastic show. So we decided to go online. And the reason we did this is because as soon as the pandemic hit, musicians around the world started making what we call pandemic or COVID videos, and doing them for free, just as a way to keep busy and stay connected. And the very first one that hit the world stage was Appalachian Spring by my colleague in the bass section in the Toronto Symphony. And this video, I don't know if you've seen it, Carla. If you haven't, you can look it up, the Toronto Symphony Appalachian Spring. And it was just stunning. And nobody knew then that you could take Zoom and have people record in their own homes and make then mix it together and make a phenomenal video. So Jeff Beecher's video just blew everybody's minds, including my own. So I started making videos, and then my first thing out of the gate was something with two dancers from the National Ballet of Canada, and we called it Bach to the Bar, Barre. And it was the idea of being a day in the life of a dancer stuck at home with their kids. And we had Guillaume Cote and his wife, the two incredible National Ballet dancers. Well, this video has been seen by 1.5 million people. It just sort of struck a chord. And then, so we went on, made more videos. My daughter's a singer, and she made a bunch of these videos as well with musicians in Europe and in Canada. So we knew that the concept of recording on your phones at home and then mixing it together, this concept worked, and we had done it. So it was something possible. And so we kind of rejigged everything, and then the actors, the musicians, and the choir, because there's a choir, everybody recorded at home. And then it was mixed by a recording engineer in Frankfurt, Germany. And then it went to our incredible video editor here in Toronto, Rob, who worked with the Air Force for many years, and he knew all the actors. And he created, well, together, created this fabulous show.
And you're even forgetting some other artists. So like, I'm already hearing from you, like we have a symphony, we have a choir, we have actors, we have these visual engineers, and video producers. Then you have Second City, who's involved in it. And then you have 2 opera singers, all in one show. That is, so when you think about the fact that, okay, like we'd love to, get in front of more audiences and, all the things that all your goals of this, it actually was amplified even more. Now, I mean, I got to attend the live broadcasting of this when you did your official launch, and it was just, I was mind blown as more and more talent was showcased. But I'd love you to tell the story, because this was a huge leap of faith, like I already said, of leading up to December 15th when you had launched this. Like, how many things came together? Like, could you just give us some flavoring behind those last few weeks?
Okay, well, there's so many points of entry to talk about. And like you said, we had 2 opera singers as well as a choir. And I just wanted to go back to what we call the Mass Hysterical Chorus, because it's basically the Kingston Road Choir. And we've continued to have weekly choir practices online during the whole pandemic. And then we invited members of 2 other United churches, because this is a fundraiser for 3 United churches. More about that later. And so in our weekly summer choir practices, Eric McCarricker, our music director, worked on these pieces. And then we all had to learn how to record with a click track in our ear at home, with the proper lighting, with the right nuance, and create the choral part. So that was huge. But leading up to this, we actually didn't see the final show. We had to watch it once before the gala on December the 15th. We watched the final run through at 2:00 on December the 15th. So that's how close this thing was. Normally with a production of this size, you would have a team of engineers, video people. You might have 10, 20. Of course, in the big movies, you have hundreds or dozens. In this case, we had 1 audio engineer and 1 video engineer. So 2 people basically put this all together. And the last few nights before the show, they were tag teaming it. So the fellow in Germany, he would work till late or early in the morning, pass it off to the man in Canada, who would work until early in the morning and then pass it back to Germany. So they didn't really sleep for the last 2 or 3 days. So that was one aspect of it.
Oh my. And I mean, what I would have to say is that every single time I chatted with you, there was something new, right? So even in this conversation right now, you came up with this idea, then you had a new partner, it came to the next thing. It became kind of this upward spiral. Like, I would say from the moment that you started, there's no way you could have imagined what it ended up. And the fact that Colin Mochrie actually was there. Like, at the beginning of this idea, you don't think, and I'm going to invite Colin Mochrie. right? So like one success helps with the next success. And continues to actually have your we're going to talk about what's next for you because you already have more ideas. Of course you do. But I'd love for you, like a moment of awe, like what was the biggest moment of awe through this? What was the time for you where it was more than worth it? Like, was there like a celebratory piece, or like, how did you feel on December 15th? I don't know. Answer any and all of these questions.
Oh my gosh, it was such a thrill. We did a live presentation of the video, so there was a live element, and then we ran the video. And all of us had to learn how to do this. None of us had done it before. So that was number one. The technical challenge was huge. And then the platform that we were using wasn't the most user-friendly for our audience. So people were having trouble getting on. So we had a sort of a half-hour pre-show and a host for that. Our wonderful Jamie Hart was our publicist, and she did the pre-show. And then at 8 o'clock, I welcomed people. So I'm downstairs right where I am now, ready to speak, but the phone is ringing off the hook. And my wife is upstairs answering the phone, trying to help people get online because it was complicated. And to be honest, a lot of our viewers are older and maybe not totally comfortable with the computer. And and then my stepson here he was monitoring the chat, and he was on the phone trying to help people. So there was just unbelievable pressure to get this show started. And then I should back up a bit because again, Carly, this is where you come in. We had, am I allowed to say the numbers, Carly?
Yeah, so it is. How about I'll start this off, and then you can go from there. So in 2020, we had identified that there was a need for a repayable grant. So there's a lot of communities of faith that have grants, but they start to learn how to generate income and revenue. And so maybe they're not ready for a full loan yet, but there's like this kind of hybrid piece in between. So Embracing the Spirit was always designed to be a micro loan program as well as a granting program. So more of the full financial thresholds here. And so in 2020, Kingston Road United Church and this mass Hysterical was one of two pilots that we ran, giving the production costs to get this off the ground. And I guess the moment of awe that you're about to give us is the moment that you were able to pay this repayable grant back was?
Well, it turned out to be that night. And again, to back up, we didn't know if this would work, selling a video online. Like, we had no experience with this. I've organized probably hundreds of concerts, live concerts, but never online. And why would you want to buy a ticket online? So, this was just a big leap of faith. The whole thing was a giant leap of faith. And so we sold the gala tickets for $30. It's cheaper now. It's only $20. But $30 is a lot of money. But that was, of course, for a household, and you could have a whole family in a household. And we needed to raise $9,000 to pay back this loan. And at 8:01, I got the news that we had sold $8,999.50. So we were 50 cents off our fundraising target. And so pretty amazing.
Great.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, and so I think like continuing to build, like now we're doing this upward spiral, right? Like things keep on happening. So you kept on thinking about it's not just for Kingston Road, it's not just for the communities of faith that we're already in relationship with. You've now come up with a new idea. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, this one is, yeah. Well, it's my inner socialist here. And, the one thing I love about church is that it's a community of people that care about other people. And aside from religion, just that is a beautiful thing. And it seems to be sadly lacking in a lot of our world because, we're more and more trained to look after ourselves and not think about others. And so having said that, I would love this to be a fundraiser for every United Church in Canada. And in that, if we sell this video for 20 bucks, then your church could make $10. So if you get the message out to your congregation you know, Chinook, British Columbia, then if you sold a bunch of videos, well, you'd get $10 for every one that somebody in your congregation bought.
Right. And lots of people have been giving this as gifts to people, and it has, imagine all the talent that's in it. So it's quite amazing. And I love how you continue to think about now with COVID, that wouldn't have been possible. I know that we had talked previously to, you know, upwards of 10 communities of faith to work together on doing the live shows, but now with it being in the video form, being able to provide and to actually be in relationship with other communities of faith is just wonderful. So getting the word out there. And so again, your goal of, you know, educate and inform and entertain and making sure that people know about the history, and also really that laughter is a spiritual practice as well, and that's allowed.
Yeah, and the fact is, this is, in my humble opinion, it's a fantastic show. It really is. It's so much fun. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. There's a lot of laughs. It's cheeky. It's just silly in places. There's some beautiful music. I hesitate to say that it comes with my money back guarantee, but you know, I'd be surprised if you didn't enjoy it. Put it that way.
There you go.
And Kelly, you mentioned something that it just reminded me of. Really, it's this one thing that has been a guiding force for me in my entire life of producing concerts, because my main job, of course, is playing in the Toronto Symphony. But for 40 years, I've been putting on concerts. Almost all of them have been for charity. I had a group for 20 years called the Bach Consort. Every concert was to raise money for different charities in the Toronto area, including Campbell Village, Ontario, and L'Arche. For me, I don't make money from these projects, but it's been incredibly enriching. It's just changed my life totally. So if I could just tell a quick story. Do I have time to tell a quick story? So I had one of my groups. So the Bach Consort was one of them. Was very what we would call highbrow, and then on the lowbrow side we had the Toronto Symphony Double Bass Quartet, also known as Bestiality, and it started off as one concert. And then it turned into 15 years of concerts, and we played on television and radio, and it was just crazy. And we would do skits and vaudeville routines, and we'd play with jazz musicians. We had singers, but it was basically 4 double basses. So we were doing a concert at a brewery in Toronto, back amongst the vats and everything, and they had us on skids. It was the coolest event. And with your ticket, you got free beer. So the place was packed. And we were doing a piece for, it was called Rock Etude, and it was for 4 players to clap in rhythm in these sort of rock rhythms. And so we had the idea of, instead of using our hands, we would use actual rocks, because it was a rock etude. So then my dear sister Leslie, she told me, she said, look, phone the University of Toronto, the head of the geology department, and ask him to come and give a dissertation on the rocks. And I just said, oh, you're crazy, the head of the geology department? And she said, absolutely. She said, the top people are the ones that say yes, because they got there because they were open and they said yes. So I called this guy and he said yes. And it literally changed my life. He came and he wore his white lab coat, and he met us about 10 minutes before the show. And he gave this hilarious dissertation about our rocks. Of course, it was all nonsense, but the audience was in stitches. He was used to performing to hundreds of students. But just that concept of, you know, the best people are the ones that say yes. And so it's been proven in my life, it's been proven over and over and over to be true. Because with the Bach Consort, we invited some of the world's great conductors to come and conduct Bach in beautiful churches in Toronto for free, like all the other players, to raise money for charity. they all said yes, except for one fellow who lives over in Europe. But
Yeah. Well, that I think is a great place for us to conclude this conversation today, because I think that you have said yes to where the Spirit was leading you. So I think you're one of the best people. Thank you, Tim.
thank you so much, Carla. It's been a pleasure.